Welcome to my show. I'm Dhriti Yatri and this is Times XP. Welcome to our top news headlines from around the globe. So let's start with it. Well, Russia boasts Iran military aviation power. Russia is reportedly strengthening Iran's defense by supporting advanced combat aviation upgrades. Well, this particular move signals deeper military cooperation between two nations under Western sanctions. Well, this development is being closely watched by NATO, Israel, and Washington. It can really reshape the Middle East military balance. Mi-28 Night Hunter helicopter raises global alarms. Why? Because the Mi-28 is a high-tech attack helicopter designed to destroy tanks and fortified targets. It operates effectively in darkness using advanced radar and night vision system. Analysts believe that it enhances Iran's offensive and defensive air combat reach. Russia expands armed partnership amid the sanctions. Facing Western economic sanctions, Russia is shifting defense exports towards Middle Eastern allies. Iran has emerged as a strategic military partner in this shift. While both the nations share tension with the United States and Western allies, their cooperation reflects a growing anti-Western defense bloc. Massive missile assault hits Ukraine's capital. Kyiv recently faced one of the most intense aerial attacks in weeks. Russia reportedly attacked hypersonic missiles, ballistic weapons, and drone swarms. While the strike targeted energy facility and civilian zones, Ukrainian officials warn infrastructure damage could trigger nationwide blackout. Energy infrastructure becomes war target here. Russia's strike on Ukraine's power plant aimed to cripple essential services. Well, destroyed electricity network disrupts hospitals, communication system, and heating facilities as well. Winter condition makes such attacks particularly devastating for the civilians. Energy warfare has become central to modern battlefield strategy. Maternity hospital strike sparks global outrage. Well, a recent missile strike damaged a maternity hospital in southern Ukraine. Well, the attack intensified international criticism and humanitarian concern. Civilian casualties have increased global calls for accountability now. Well, this particular incident highlights the war's growing human cost. Peace talks shadowed by fresh sanctions here. Missile attacks occurred just days before planned US-brokered peace talks in Abu Dhabi. Ukraine claims that Russia broke informal ceasefire expectations during winter. Now, such escalation complicates diplomatic negotiations here. Analysts question whether talks are genuine or tactical pauses. United States cuts tariff on Indian goods by 18%. That's right. The US announced major tariff reduction on Indian exports. This particular decision boosts Indian businesses and strengthens bilateral trade relationship. Lower tariff makes Indian products more competitive in American markets. Well, this particular move signals deepening economic cooperation between the two nations. Lindsey Graham links trade relief to Russian oil cuts. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham suggested that India earned tariff benefits by reducing Russian oil import. His remarks connected trade incentives to geopolitical alignment. The statement sparked debate in diplomatic circles. It reflects Washington's strategic expectation from the global partner. India balances between US and Russia. India continues maintaining strong ties with both Washington and Moscow. Russian oil imports helped India stabilize fuel prices during global disruption, and in the meantime, India is expanding defense and technology cooperation with the US. While this balancing act defines New Delhi's foreign policy strategy. Trade deals becoming strategic power tool. Modern trade agreements increasingly reflect geopolitical alliances. Economic incentives, they are often linked to security and diplomatic cooperation. While the US-India deal highlights this evolving global trade pattern, trade is now a major instrument of international power politics. Iran announces offensive defense doctrine. Iran's military leadership revealed a shift towards aggressive defensive strategy here. The doctrine suggests Iran may strike preemptively if it sees the threat. Well, the announcement signals increased regional military readiness. It also acts as deterrence messaging towards the US and Israel. Iran warns US bases could become the targets. Iran's top commander warned that American forces in the Middle East would not remain safe in war. Thousands of US troops, they are stationed across Gulf nations. While the warning escalates military tensions across the region, it also increases global security concerns. Iran accuses CIA and Mossad of destabilization. Iran alleges that the US and Israeli intelligence agencies supported the unrest within its border. Western governments strongly deny the accusations, though. Tehran uses such claims to strengthen the domestic unity and political messaging. Intelligence rivalry remains a key element of the Middle Eastern politics. Russian military aircraft landing in Cuba, it raises the Cold War fear. A Russian Second 76 cargo aircraft landed at a Cuban airbase near the US territory. This particular aircraft is linked to transporting the military equipment in the past. While the event triggers security monitoring in Washington, it revived the Cold War era geopolitical tensions in the Caribbean. Cuba becomes strategic flashpoint again. Well, Russia's growing military support for Cuba challenges the US regional influence. Havana continues balancing economic survival with geopolitical alliances. Well, Moscow's backing strengthens Cuba against the American pressure. Well, the development signals expanding the global power competition. Russia claims Iskander missile destroyed HIMARS. Moscow released drone footage claiming destruction of a US-supplied HIMARS launcher. The HIMARS system has been very important to Ukraine's battlefield strategy. But if confirmed, then the strike marks a significant tactical success for Russia. Well, the claim highlights growing missile warfare intensity. Precision missile warfare dominates Ukraine conflict. Both Russia and Ukraine increasingly rely on long-range missile systems. Surveillance drones and advanced artilleries, they define the modern combat tactics here. Well, technology now plays a decisive role in the battlefield outcomes. The war is becoming a high-tech military contest. Khamenei accuses US of supporting ISIS creation. Iran's supreme leader revived controversial allegations linked to the US to ISIS formation. Washington and its allies, they strongly reject the claim. Well, the accusation reflects Iran's long-standing geopolitical narrative here. Such rhetoric intensifies global diplomacy. Iran signals conditional return to nuclear talks despite the harsh rhetoric. Well, Iran hinted at possible nuclear negotiations with Washington. Diplomatic talks could reduce sanctions and regional tensions here. However, mutual distrust, it remains extremely high. Negotiations remain fragile and uncertain. Jordan blocks airspace for attacks on Iran. That's right. Jordan declares its territory and skies will not be used for military strikes against Iran. Well, the decision limits possible operational routes for Western forces here. It highlights growing caution among the US regional allies. Jordan prioritizes national security and regional stability now. Gulf nations quietly urge restraint. That's right, Saudi Arabia and the UAE reportedly advocate diplomatic solutions over military conflict. Both nations fear retaliation targeting oil infrastructure and cities. Well, they continue balancing relationships with Washington and Tehran. Regional powers increasingly prioritize stability now. Israel signals readiness for all military scenarios here. Israel has declared preparedness for potential confrontation with Iran. Defense forces are strengthening surveillance and missile defense system. Israel considers Iran's nuclear ambitions a major regional threat. Well, the readiness increases the regional conflict risk further. Istanbul talks offer fragile diplomatic hope. The US and Iran are preparing for diplomatic discussions in Istanbul. Talks may focus on nuclear restrictions and sanction relief. Rising military tension threaten negotiation success. Diplomacy remains a thin line preventing the escalation now. Greenland rejects the US strategic pressure. Greenland's Prime Minister declared that the island is not for sale. The statement responded to renewed American strategic interest in the Arctic territory here. Greenland seeks autonomy and protection from superpower competition, while the issue tests Western alliance dynamics. Arctic resources trigger global power race. Greenland holds rare minerals, oil reserves, and emerging shipping routes here. Melting polar ice, it is unlocking economic and military opportunity here. Well, the Arctic is becoming a new geopolitical battlefield. Major global powers are expanding their presence over there. Russia and China challenge the West in Arctic influence. Well, Russia is expanding military bases across its Arctic coastline. China is investing heavily in Arctic shipping and mining projects. While both the nations challenge Western strategic dominance here, the Arctic rivalry reflects future global power competition. Iranian rapper calls for foreign political support. Well, Iranian rapper Miraj Tehrani, he appealed for international involvement in Iran's political change here. His statement sparked global debate about foreign intervention. Artistic expression in Iran often carries political risk, while the incident reflects youth frustration and internal dissent. Russia warns US-Iran war could trigger global conflict here. Russian officials caution that American strike on Iran could escalate worldwide tension. While the warning reflects fear of multi-nation military escalation, it also raises nuclear confrontation concern. Global powers are closely monitoring the developments. Strait of Hormuz remains world's most dangerous oil route today. Nearly 1/5 of global oil shipments passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has hinted that it could disrupt shipping routes during the war. While any blockade could cause massive global energy price spikes here, the choke point remains central to global economic stability.
An out-of-control bushfire in South Australia has continued to rage overnight, with fears for homes and businesses. Live to Will DeFulvio in Yankalilla on the Fleurieu Peninsula. Will, what are conditions like there now?
Well, Jane, this fire is still out of control. It's uncontrolled. We're here at the Yankalilla Showgrounds where more than 350 firefighters have been cycling in and out as this bushfire pushes on to its third day. It's now torn through around 2,600 hectares of land. It's believed that at least one structure is gone, but the fear is that overnight more may have followed that structure and they may have been consumed. There are currently watch and act, prepare to leave warnings for Deep Creek, Silverton, Blowhole Beach Road and Delamere, with this fire generally moving in a northeasterly direction. However, conditions are constantly changing. Today it's quite cool right now, but later today we're forecast for a 31-degree day, which is going to make it quite difficult for firefighters to continue this fight, along with unpredictable winds which will push the bushfire in every direction. And the Country Fire Service is expecting that this fight will go on for some time. Have a listen.
This is going to be an operation that we're going to be stuck with for a number of days still to come.
So conditions, Jane, could be worsening today. So anyone in the immediate area are told to follow their bushfire evacuation plan and stay across emergency information as well.
OK, Will, thank you for the update. An out-of-control bushfire is continuing to tear through the Fleurieu Peninsula in South Australia, with fears homes may have been lost. Residents in Deep Creek, Silverton and Delamere are warned to prepare to leave. A watch and act alert remains in place as more than 260 firefighters battle the blaze in steep terrain, with more than 2,500 hectares of land burnt.
We have multiple assets under threat along the road. The fire has jumped the road in multiple locations. Appliances have run out of water. We require 2 additional strike teams ASAP to our location, over.
Main South Road has been reopened only for local residents and essential freight.
The World Government Summit opened in Dubai on Monday, bringing together heads of state, ministers, experts and entrepreneurs to discuss new models of governance. Discussions focused on artificial intelligence, digital transformation and government's ability to anticipate tomorrow's challenges. Exchanges that set the tone for a summit firmly focused on the future.
We are looking for partnership in our digital transformation journey. We are just starting the journey. We want to digitize the economy of Lesotho. So we're looking for partners, we are looking for collaborators, and this is a great opportunity.
In this context of transformation and the search for partnerships, several African countries made their voices heard. Attending the summit, Senegal delivered a clear message. Shaping the governments of tomorrow depends above all on investing in human capital. Today, Senegal has a transformation agenda, Senegal 2050, and one of its main pillars is human capital, investing in young people, training, educating, guiding them, and enabling their access to employment is a major challenge. But today, the priority of the new government is to attract investors to process local products within Senegal, create added value and generate jobs. This requires a well-trained, well-oriented youth with a clear vision. By welcoming representatives from 150 governments, the United Arab Emirates placed this edition of the summit under the banner of dialogue and cooperation. Discussions will continue in order to identify shared responses to global challenges.
Thank you so much, Steph. Our top story this morning, the ongoing anti-ICE demonstrations. So yesterday, hundreds of people gathered outside downtown LA for a peaceful protest. But then hours later, there were confrontations outside the Federal Detention Center. NBC4's Camila Rambaldi tracking the overnight developments and the stern warning from the president. Camila, good morning.
Hi, Michelle. Good morning. As you just mentioned, things escalated when people showed up outside the Federal Detention Center in downtown LA. And we have learned that at least 24 people have been detained in anti-ICE protests in LA. Let's get you straight to some video from yesterday when News Chopper 4 was overhead. It was after 5 in the afternoon yesterday when federal agents moved onto Alameda Street, pushing back protesters there, grabbing one person and leading them back towards the Federal Detention Center. Hours later, protesters could also be seen on the steps of LA City Hall. According to the LAPD, Spring Street was closed between Temple and First because of the demonstrations taking place in the area. It was around 6 in the evening when the LAPD says that Alameda Street between Aliso and Temple were closed off in both directions. Then at about 9:15 in the evening, the LAPD declared a dispersal order for an unlawful assembly. Protesters could be seen clashing there with the LAPD by the federal building. Yesterday's demonstrations in downtown LA were part of a nationwide day of action against ICE. And here's more from some of the protesters yesterday in downtown LA.
You see what's going on in Minneapolis and what ICE is doing across the country. How do you feel?
I don't know how many times my wife and I have looked at clips of what's happening in Minneapolis and just break into tears. It's after the tears comes the anger. I'm furious.
Again, numerous road closures were in effect yesterday due to the demonstrations in downtown LA. President Trump is commenting on the federal response to protests happening in cities like Los Angeles. He posted as saying in part, quote, "I have instructed Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem that under no circumstances are we going to participate in various poorly run Democrat cities with regard to their protests and or riots unless and until they ask us for help. We will, however, guard and very powerfully so any and all federal buildings that are being attacked," end quote. And we've also learned that there is another protest planned for today at the Cypress Park Home Depot, and that protest is expected to start at noon.
President Trump says he's informed local governments it's now up to them to protect their communities, while he says he'll continue to deploy federal officials to protect federal buildings and parks.
It's a change in strategy for the White House, which has for months sent troops to several cities, especially those led by Democrats. National correspondent Christine Frizzell outlines the changes ahead.
The people united will never be defeated.
Anger no longer concentrated on the streets of a single city. From Austin, Texas, to LA, to Minneapolis, where 2 Americans were killed at the hands of federal agents. This memorial to honor one of them, Alex Preddy, a reminder of some of the frustration that is boiling over with immigration and customs enforcement. President Trump vowing to protect federal buildings, but posting, under no circumstances are we going to participate in, quote, poorly run Democrat cities with regard to protests and or riots, unless they ask for help.
If we go in, all they do is complain. If they want help, they'll ask, but they have to say please.
Trump singling out Eugene, Oregon. Chaos unfolding alongside pleas from White House border czar Tom Homan for cooperation, for local law enforcement to help the Trump administration with its primary goal of arresting dangerous criminals.
More agents in the jail means less agents in the street. This is common sense cooperation that allows us to draw down on the number of people we have here.
He and other Republicans blaming sanctuary cities and states for making the country less safe.
Immigration law is national law. So if a state runs into an illegal immigrant, they have an obligation under federal law to get that person in federal custody for deportation.
A different take from Democrats on the best way forward.
What we want in these next 2 weeks is to just make ICE follow the law, right? No more of these roving patrols through the cities in which they're demanding that American citizens show their papers. That's what happened in Stalin's Russia. That's what happened in Maduro's Venezuela. That's not America.
Some states, including New York, Maryland, Virginia, Illinois, and Massachusetts, are now considering legislation to further prohibit state and local law enforcement from cooperating with federal immigration authorities. This could kickstart an even bigger fight between Democratic-led states and the White House.
This is Dabu 7, and we've got a story out of Vegas where federal agents in the local PD made a raid here over the weekend, and they're saying that they have discovered an illegal biological laboratory inside of a private home, mainly in the garage, where there was refrigerators containing unknown liquids. There were vials of what they say is suspected biological material, and they say that they believe that whoever was running this had an intent to spread. That's the big thing here. They're saying they had an intent to do harm to others, and they took one person into custody here, a 55-year-old property manager named Ori Solomon. Now, he's currently booked on felony charges linked to the improper disposal of hazardous waste. Now, some of these vials had like dengue fever, HIV, all types of crazy stuff people have mentioned. I've even seen people talking about Ebola and all that out there. Now, with Nipah popping off in India right now and it being mentioned in the Epstein files doomsday strain, you got to watch what they're doing here. Okay? Because they have been plotting this entire time for the real deal, obviously, even since lockdowns. It was all part of a real scenario. Even right now, men running across the country, rounding up people in the U.S. and throwing up massive warehouses to put them in. Oh, it's going down. This is it. This is everything that David Crowley tried to warn you about in Gray State and why they clipped him. Okay, and it's popping off full scale right out of Minnesota and all across the country. The same way, all we're missing is the event, the release of something big. So we got to pay attention to things like these. You can't just say, oh, here we go again. No, this isn't going to be back to what it was, standing 6 feet apart in stores and all that. That's out the window. You'll see how quickly that was fraudulent. There's not going to be no nurses dancing in the hospitals. You'll see how fraudulent that was. There will be real people dead all around. You'll know somebody for sure this time. Anything with a 70% kill rate that gets put out there that's super deadly, spreads like wildfire, it begins. How it's done in this country, we don't know, but you could wake up one morning and say, a flight from here, or it's broke loose in Dallas, Atlanta, anywhere. So, it's better that they catch these things, right? But at the same time, how many more are there? And if they're catching on to them, will this press the time down to where they feel they need to release it sooner? If they've got one more lab and it's the last one left and they're coming looking for it, what are they going to do? This whole thing is fraudulent to me, 100%. But this is the latest. All these samples taken, I'll update on what
comes out. But even that survivor has vulnerabilities that have been exposed throughout the whole thing. Trump doesn't want a strong, empowered person standing before him. Trump is afraid of strong, empowered people. What Trump wants is a person that, has the gumption to stand up, but a person that has so many weaknesses that Trump can exploit these weaknesses and take control of this person. And so what Trump is doing is he's playing the apprentice on a scenario by scenario basis. Look at Venezuela. He launches this Delta strike to take out Maduro. The CIA's in there buying people off. And my God, it's working. I mean, he's opening up a U.S. embassy in Caracas. I'm just telling you right now, that means Venezuela's sold out. Absolutely sold out. Everybody is in the pocket of the CIA. Why? Because Donald Trump took it to the limit, deployed things, did some demonstrations, sent Delta Force in, to seize Maduro, and everybody went, oh my God, well, we're done, But had Venezuela stood up and said, bring it on, 4 million, guerrilla war, blow up the oil fields, launch drone attacks against American targets, come at us, Donald Trump. Donald Trump couldn't have done that. He's not very brave. Okay, he's a coward at heart. I probably shouldn't say this, but I just did. So the FBI will come through my door. But Donald Trump, let me put it this way, had that lead MH-54 that went in to take Maduro, it got hit by gunfire. And if you look at Donald Trump when he talks about this, that was a close one. He saw his presidency go downhill. Because if that lead MH-47 had gone down and taken 30 or 40 Delta guys with it, and suddenly we had a whole bunch of dead bodies in Caracas, we're sending a searcher, and it's Black Hawk Down all over again. And we now have hundreds of Americans on the ground, surrounded, out of ammunition, dying. There is no Pakistani army or Malaysian army off there in some UN base to ride to the rescue. Nobody's going to ride to the rescue. We tried to send in the Rangers. They get shot down. And now we have hundreds of dead Americans and, potentially thousands of prisoners because they'll run out of ammunition eventually. That's the end of Donald Trump's presidency. That's the end of it. And he saw his life flash before his eyes when that helicopter got shot. But he got away with it. He bluffed. The CIA was there, bought people off, and everybody gave up. So he won in Venezuela. He's trying to do the same thing in Iran right now. You got to negotiate. I got a big, wonderful fleet coming up, and I'm doing all this stuff, and we're gonna take you out and all that stuff. But I don't think the Iranians are going to capitulate. But the Iranians are smart enough to know that they have to create a diplomatic off-ramp. And Donald Trump, I believe, will take it because we come back to my assessment. He's a coward. Donald Trump can't take 10,000 American casualties. He doesn't have the guts for that. He doesn't have the balls for that. Donald Trump's a coward. He's a bully. His whole thing is to posture. But when Vladimir Putin stands up and says, Vladimir Putin's a strong guy. Look at when anybody's there, he's a strong guy. I mean, Al-Qaeda became a strong guy. But that's the point. Donald Trump is a coward. He doesn't stand for anything. He doesn't stand for anything that is principled. And so I just think Donald Trump's bluffing. But because it's the United States, many people believe the bluff and aren't willing to call him on it. And so they buckle. Again, I mean, if I were Europe on Greenland, I would have deployed 500 special forces, gone in, arrested every American service member, put them on an airplane, thrown them out, dug in and tell Donald Trump, come and take it. Come and take it, and we're taking out Ramstein. It won't be the Russians that take out Ramstein. We're taking out Ramstein. Come and take it, and we're taking everybody in Europe prisoner. You want a war with Europe? We'll give you a war with Europe. And Donald Trump will go, I didn't want this. I'm a coward. Oh, my God, I didn't want this.
Call his bluff. Call his bluff, you're saying.
I'm all about now this is this, and even economically, look what happens when China steps up. Trump folds like a house of cards. He spins it so it looks like I made China do this and that and the other thing. But then you got India. I mean, I don't know if the reports are true, but now in order to get a trade deal with America, the Indians are like, oh, we won't buy any Russian oil. I don't think that's true because India is a member of BRICS and but my point is there are nations in the world that won't call his bluff, that will back down, and that's empowering. What happens to a bully when he goes to the playground and he finally gets the courage to go up to somebody and go, and that other person, he goes, look, that worked. He goes up there, bam! That's the end of the bully. That's the end of the bully. But the problem is it's not just punching him in the face, though. It's punching the United States. And I don't want that to happen because that means war. That means dead Americans. That means dead other people as well. This is just the wrong man to have as the president of the United States. Wrong.
We have breaking news to share with you as Reuters is reporting an Iranian drone has been shot down nearing the USS Abraham Lincoln. Let me read it directly from Reuters. Quote, the U.S. military on Tuesday shot down an Iranian drone that, quote, aggressively approached the Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier in the Arabian Sea, the U.S. military said, in an incident first reported by Reuters. Skipping down, the Iranian Shahed 139 drone was flying towards the carrier, quote, with unclear intent and was shot down by a F-35 U.S. fighter jet, the U.S. military said. All right, Billy, what do you make of this?
I mean, look, the tensions are clearly high after, the U.S. attack on Iran. Obviously, everything that's been going on in the Middle East. This is not a new enemy situation, but what is new is it feels like the aggressive nature that the Iranian regime is taking. We have to put this in the context of what is happening there inside that country, with people rising up, fighting back, pushing back against the government dominance, against the chaos that we've seen unfolding there. It seems like that unrest could create a situation where the government, which is traditionally unpredictable there, becomes even more unpredictable. And a moment like this can quickly escalate if it's not handled properly. And so, of course, we understand why that was shot down. But I think the bigger question is this just a fluke, or is this the start of something more to come?
Exactly. And, we don't obviously know all the details, but this is a extraordinarily important move. Is this the match that lights the whole thing on fire? We don't know, but we just wanted to bring this news to you as reported by Reuters, because this could be very significant. The fact that a drone from Iran was, quote, aggressively approaching the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier. We will obviously keep you up to date here on CBN.
Iran's president has ordered his country's foreign minister to hold talks with the United States. This move by Masoud Pezeshkian comes as tensions are very high between Washington and Tehran. That's because of Iran's bloody crackdown on nationwide protests last month that are believed to have killed thousands of people. Now, Pezeshkian said he had ordered Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi to have these talks. He said that they would be conducted if they could be in a fair manner and in a site that would be also fair to the Iranians. Now, Turkey has been working behind the scenes to set these talks up, and if they happen, they would likely see Araghchi meet again with U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff. Those two men had multiple rounds of negotiations over Iran's nuclear program before Israel launched its 12-day war on Iran back in June. Now, during that war, the United States also bombed Iranian nuclear sites. Whether or not these talks bear fruit, it's unclear. There's a lot of difference between the Iranian position and the American position. But one thing is for certain, that the fact that Pezeshkian has come out signals that Iran's supreme leader, the 86-year-old Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has blessed these talks moving forward. That's a big sign, and it shows just how important it is for Iran to reach some sort of negotiated understanding with Washington. Already, U.S. officials have described Iran as being in one of the weakest positions it's ever been after the demonstrations since its 1979 Islamic Revolution.
Last question, Scott. I'm going to play a quick video. It's Pete Hegseth. He's with Trump. This is from last week. I just want to hear your assessment on what Hegseth's saying right here.
No other military in the world could have executed the most sophisticated, powerful raid, not just in American history, I would say in world history. What those men did going downtown, another country, the most secure place in the most secure base in the middle of the night without anybody knowing until those simultaneous bombs dropped 3 minutes before the helicopters dropped. No other country could coordinate that. No other president would have been willing to empower those warriors that way to be that effective. And that sends a message to every capital around the world that when President Trump speaks, he means business, and we are reestablishing deterrence at the War Department, Mr. President.
Thank you.
He was referring to Caracas there. What's your take? How accurate was Hegseth with that assessment?
Not accurate at all. I mean, come on. No other president would have had the courage. Jimmy Carter sent, Delta Force into Iran in a bigger mission than this. It went south. It didn't work. But he had the balls to say go. So, hey, Pete, other presidents did. Richard Nixon sent the Santé Raiders. Pete may have forgotten about them, but they went in to try and rescue American prisoners of war. A raid on a prisoner of war camp in North Vietnam, one of the ballsiest missions in the history of ballsiest missions. Sorry, Pete. I mean, Pete Hegseth is just he's a braggart. He's 100% a braggart, because once you get all the details of what happened here, all the preparation that went in, this was a mission that you would have really had to try hard to fail, and the people that were executing this mission were very good, and it almost failed. I just want to tell Pete, that MH-47 got riddled. You know it did. The damn pilot got his legs blown out, not off, but got hit. Had that gone down, Pete, how would you have looked? I mean, it was a foolish raid. They miscalculated. They got lucky. But to sit there and pretend that the only military that has balls today is the military that exists today. Hey, Pete, the guys I fought with, we had big balls too, pal. We didn't shy away from shit. I just despise Pete Hegseth. He acts as if he's the biggest, toughest man around because he goes and does PT with people. But, you know, Secretary of Defense is supposed to be a thinker. You know, I could go hire any PT specialist to do what he's doing. That's not leadership. Okay, you're not supposed to be the platoon sergeant. You're not supposed to be the company commander, platoon commander. You're supposed to be the Secretary of Defense, which means shut your damn mouth when you're out there talking about things critical to national security. Stop bragging, because the people who know, and it just makes you look foolish. And, you know, to sit there and pretend, I'd like Pete to meet Abdi Aladinov, you know, and talk about Operation Potok, you know, men crawling through a pipe 15 kilometers through toxic air environment, multiple days in the pipe to crawl out and attack the enemy from the rear. That's balls, Pete. That's
When was
balls.
this? When was that? When was that?
That was during the liberation of Kursk. So I think it was fought this past summer. But I'm just saying that, you know, other militaries perform amazing feats of you know, operational art. And the arrogance of Pete. Look, you know, Delta Force trains all. They better be good, Pete, because we spend a hell of a lot of money training them. Okay, so stop bragging. You know, if they did well, pat them on the back, give them some medals, but shut up, because it just makes you look foolish and stupid.